Let's keep it. So, okay, perfect. So, Adi, first of all, thank you for that basic invitation and you accepted it. I love that. I mean, this is what I really like. And the whole concept behind this, I told you, I don't like scripted thing. I'll have to, but I'll still repeat it. The whole idea of this new series that I've started, it's called Mediator Experiences. So interesting experiences that mediators have as part of their life. Talk about that. So when I realized that the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship is a very, very, I mean, I would say, experience that is so memorable for people. Why not put it out? So that is when this started. And Liliana is here. Liliana is in Argentina, and she, I mean, I felt that would learn a lot from what is happening about the fellowship and how people go about it. And similarly, there's so many people out there who might not even have heard about it. Let's put it out. So that is the background. Obviously, I've told you this before this, but I'm just I have to go through it again. Don't like the scripted part, but I have to. So Adi, please tell us. I mean, the whole concept of starting this fellowship and taking it up. How did it happen with you?
Thank you, Vikram, and great to meet you, Liliana. Having this chat about my experience with the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship. So I would say that Vikram, you are the source of this new series, and the idea emerged with a view to many mediators that would need support as they try to develop themselves and to gather experience and information or possible sources of wisdom and knowledge and skills. And my understanding is that Liliana is interested in learning how mediation can support private sector institutions, but not only, and let's say mediation with capital M, as I like to call it. Let's say dialogue-based processes can help public institutions and not only to engage concerns that are shared by citizens and communities and so on and so forth in a way that is able to provide effective remedy, practical solutions, and enhanced understanding before everything. Of course, Liliana, I'll be very happy to hear your thoughts around, why did you get interested into this? We all share this passion for mediation. But yes, Vikram, I'm absolutely certain that my experience with the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship was extremely helpful in really progressing my project, my mediation project. We each have a mediation project. We each have some sense of an idea, of a vision, of, once we understand what mediation is, then we see different practical applications and opportunities, but then we see ourselves in some of these applications. And then we have a dream. We believe that we can do something about it. And I think that the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship was certainly a program that helped me make, achieve significant progress around that dream. But let me just stop here and turn it back to you, Vikram, and to Liliana, just to get us started. And of course, I'll be happy to share my experience.
But I'm really sorry, Adi. I should have asked you to at least introduce yourself, which I did not do. I know you, so I feel the world knows you. Of course they do. I mean, the mediation world definitely knows you, but just a little. I mean, whatever basic introduction, if you want to just give us that.
Of course, I'll be happy to introduce myself. I'm a mediator. I'm a full-time mediator, actually. I don't have any other jobs. That's all I do. I try to keep my mediation work to the higher side of 50%, not to the lower side of 50%. And to the lower side, of course, I include mediation training and ADR development consultancy. I'm working with ADR Center as a senior expert, and we implement numerous programs that progress mediation ADR in different jurisdictions, supporting governments and international organizations or different institutions to incorporate mediation in their policies or in their activities. That's it. By training, I'm an engineer that was interested to learn from mediation as I was working for a bar association. And from that point forward, I was invited to manage a mediation center that was one of the pilot programs of the Romanian Ministry of Justice. And it was only one step when I realized that this is something that I like very much. And then I went to the law school and I wanted to understand how to communicate with lawyers. And that was almost 20 years ago. So that's it. That's my presentation. Happy to meet with you, Vikram, and your audience as ever.
I have to understand, communicating with lawyers, the judges haven't been able to do for so many years. How did you manage to communicate with them?
It's a blending process, Vikram.
Well, okay, now let me tell you, I told you earlier also, but the fact is that for Liliana, for me, represents those people who are passionate about mediation, but are not being able to take it up as a full-time profession like you have. There are lots that we have to do, which obviously separately in the symposium also I kept talking about that, the profession developing to the level where, because there is so much, I keep saying there's so much work out there, but definitely there's some issue somewhere which needs to, I mean, we have to dig in, we have to do something about it. So that part. So someone like her that who actually wants to take it up. So I felt that this fellowship would be a good step towards that direction. So, but you have to tell us your experience. I mean, right now, first you have to tell us your experience, all those memorable aspects of it, and then we'll, whatever questions that Liliana will have, we can take it up after that.
Sure. Can we start with just a brief intro from Liliana, just to explain a little bit your interest, Liliana, in mediation and how my description of my own experience with the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship could be helpful. The reason for that is that I would like to comment on my experience by reflecting to your needs and your own interests. I think that would be helpful for you and even for the audience, because by connecting my experience with what you would phrase and identify as your own goals could be, I think, very relevant. And we should speak to the Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship, which is all about helping individuals that are passionate about this, that have a program, that have a project to achieve their goals.
Yes, of course. Vikram, is that okay?
Yeah, please tell us about. Okay. Adi wants to know exactly what you're looking at, what you want to do. Yes. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself and everything, please.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I'm an attorney. That's my base profession, and I couldn't find the way to solve conflicts. Probably I thought I would, because I met.
Your signal is a bit of an issue. I think you're cracking up. Your voice is cracking up.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we're losing you. It sometimes happens at the moment you really need it, it'll fail you.
One option is to try with video, although that kind of fails the purpose of.
Oh, I speak to her very often. This doesn't happen.
Okay, then let's just give it a second. Sure.
Yeah, it could be some whatever. But important. Which year were you the fellow?
It was a couple of years ago. If I'm not mistaken, it was the last year when you could travel. It was 2019.
Okay.
And it was such an amazing experience. I'll be very happy to describe my experience. I think Liliana is back. Let's hear from her first, and then I'll get on.
No, I think there's a signal problem. She'll come back. So up till then, Adi,
sure.
Bit about how you planned it out, what happened, how did you find out about it?
Absolutely. So if I would go back to your statement that you checked the list of fellows and you said, I know him, I know her, I know him. it's the same thing I've done. I said, I know so many people, and actually the question is, how do you get to check the list? That's the question, because you have to have, you know, information about this program. And you get to check this list after meeting with people identifying themselves as Weinstein JAMS International Fellows or Weinstein International Foundation Senior Fellows, for that matter. And then you say, what is that? Can you know, tell me more about it? It sounds nice. And, you know, is it related to Judge Danny Weinstein? Or for people who may not know who Judge Danny Weinstein is, what Weinstein means, you know, they may ask. Or even JAMS. We cannot assume that everyone knows JAMS, which is Judicial Arbitration Mediation Services, the largest provider, private provider, to my knowledge, of mediation and arbitration services in the world. And they say, yes, I'm a fellow. And then you ask themselves, what does that mean? And how did that help you? And so on and so forth. And it's only one step when you go online and you navigate to jamsadr.com/Weinstein fellowship, and then you see it. You see that there is a program out there that is implemented by the JAMS Foundation, and it's called Weinstein JAMS International Fellowship. This program started in 2008, and basically it's about international professionals, or as the program identifies it, qualified individuals, all living outside the United States, having the opportunity to travel to the United States and study dispute resolution processes and practices. So it's like a door towards the education, the practice, and the institutions that are actually doing things that may be relevant to your learning goals, or to, you know, what you would like to learn and perhaps even do when you go back to your own country and you want to achieve some goals, or you want to undertake some activities. And there are so many different examples. I'll be very happy to give you different examples of how wide this program is in terms of completely different goals for all the fellows that have applied. And I think more than 100 fellows already that have applied and have traveled to the United States in the past 12, 13 years and did all these programs. So in my case, I'm going to speak about my own experience, because I'm here in my own personal capacity, and I cannot dare to speak in the name of JAMS or JAMS Foundation or the Weinstein International Foundation. I speak in my name, and I'm happy to report my own experience with this program. Basically, my main goal focused on a very simple question, Vikram, which is, we see that governments promote mediation by creating policies and rules for mediation, legal frameworks, and so on, and pass legislation in many countries. I would not say all countries, but in many countries, but fail to use them for their own disputes. It's kind of a big question mark for me. And then we see that the private sector is praising ADR, mediation, arbitration, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to focus on mediation specifically. And they don't use it. It's something is missing. And I'm not sure if it's the proper policy that is missing. I'm not sure if it's the proper legislation. When I said proper policy, I mean the internal dispute resolution policy, how companies are taught how the company cultures are accepting mediation and ADR. It may be that there isn't the proper legal framework, or it may be that the capacity is not there, or it may be that the supply is not up to the expectations of the possible demand, that we have to factor that in as possible cause as well. And I said, okay, fine. Where are these things part of the reality? And the United States, it's one of the obvious examples. And then I said, okay, then I would like to learn more about that. And as I was working already with so many colleagues, all around the world that have been involved in this wonderful program, it was only one step when I summarized my goals. And I sent a message with a so-called program, according to which I said I would like to study, I would like to undertake some education with some of the famous ADR programs in the United States. I would like to shadow mediators based in the United States to see their approach to the process, what type of mediation, all those questions. Do they stay in joint meetings, private sessions? Is it the same that I was taught and I used to, and so on. I would like to meet with institutions that use mediation just to see why they do that. Ideally, both in the private and the public sectors, and the response was yes, sure, we'll have you. I think I applied 1 year before, so it was, I think, in 2018 when I sent my application. And the answer was, let's have a conversation about it before even being accepted. And we had a meeting, and I had an opportunity to explain more about the situation in Romania, where I'm based, and we had some earthquakes, as in constitutional court, Romanian constitutional court decisions that have that actually put the entire situation after some good progress, then 12 years back to square one, if not even before square one. That was in 2014. Today, 7 years after, is the same kind of an apocalyptic view. It's nothing, basically. Everyone is saying, it was stated that by the Constitutional Court that mediation is not constitutional, right? So although it was a reference about some sanction to sanction a plaintiff, that you would, if you don't go to the court before trying a first information session about mediation, you would be sanctioned by the court with case inadmissibility, and the Constitutional Court said that this sanction is too strong for what you want to do, but not mediation. But of course, the projected message in the public was that it's mediation that is not constitutional. So going back, I said, I would like to help, if possible, overcome this deadlock. We are in deadlock in Romania. So whatever I can learn from in the US, I think it will be helpful, just to see how we can overcome this deadlock. And it was also, it was something else, Vikram, also. Some 20,000+ people got trained, and I see Liliana is back as well, so Vikram and Liliana. Some 20,000+ people got trained in mediation in Romania, and some 13 were accredited for practice, or licensed, or authorized. We call it actually authorized. But now there are about 1,000. So all the others suspended their license because it's no demand, basically, it's nothing. So I said, okay, how are they organized? And 98% are organized in kitchenette solo mediation firms. It's, myself, and that's it. No mediation centers are more like organized institutions that have the capacity and the headquarters and the mediation rooms and all the infrastructure that you would need to provide high quality mediation services, so that then you expect that public sector and private sector representatives will come to you with their problems and issues. So you see, there needs to be a balance. The supply has to be the demand. In our case, because of the fact that the profession is so underfunded, there is not a sustainable business model. Then almost all mediators are providing all the services on their own, and in the spaces that one can imagine. I mean, more or less or more adequate for mediation services. And now I said, well, JAMS is a huge institution, I think 300 plus full-time mediators, offices that are state-of-the-art. And then how do you achieve that? What's the model? What's the financial? What's the business model? And I said, I want to learn that, because maybe if we are able to bring such a concept in a jurisdiction, maybe the private sector will say, well, there is one option. Now we have an option. Maybe that's what is expected. And so that was my overall thinking around applying for this fellowship. And I basically listed all these reasons, and I said, I think I would like to do some education, as I said, shadow some mediators, visit some institutions, but even including different offices of JAMS offices, and not only meet with people and just see what kind of difficulties were there in the United States some 10, 20, 30 years ago, when all these things started there. And so I was invited before my application was assessed and then I received the result. I was invited for a conversation, because actually the committee that conducts the appraisal of these applications is interested. They walk their talk, right? So let's have a conversation so we get better, we understand better, more about your intentions. What is it that you want to achieve? So I thought that was so nice to be able to have a 1 hour with whom? With Judge Danny Weinstein himself, with Jay Welsh, with Ellen Bass, who is, I think, referenced as one of the contact points for this program. The applications need to be submitted to Ellen. And David Brandon from JAMS Foundation and others in the committee, they said, let's discuss, we want to learn more. And it elevates you. It's nice to be able to have this conversation and to explain, and it's so much more appropriate when you are being asked, what is it that you want to do and how. So then out of that conversation, some possible next steps occurred that became basically the structure for my fellowship program. I was about to learn when I received the response that this worked. And to the point that you've mentioned, Liliana, about public sector institutions that are responding in writing to complaints and concerns and so on and so forth. Perhaps sometimes this is what the citizen wants, the person or the group or the community. Maybe they just want somebody to meet with, just to receive some information verbally. So, the governments and all these institutions, they spend so much time and so many resources in drafting all these written things and kind of formalizing processes that in so many cases could be more fluid, if you ask me, at least. But anyway, let me stop here, see what are I see Liliana is back.
Yeah, I think
it would be great to hear from you, Liliana.
Yeah, because what you spoke about, what she is planning, we did that before the recording. So now, Liliana, please tell us about yourself, what the plan that you have, and then like Adi said, he'll then relate that to how you should go about it. So Liliana, yours, please.
Okay. I apologize for earlier. I'm sorry about that technical inconvenience. access to technology. That's another aspect. Well, I'm an attorney. That's my base profession, and my interest in mediation comes precisely from my experience as an attorney. Through my experience, and when I met all the legal system in the practical aspects, because when you're studying, you know all the theory, and they tell you the theory, but they do not tell you how it is going to be on a daily basis, how you're going to practice your profession. Then you know all that world, and I never found what I thought I was going to be able to do as an attorney. That was trying to solve people's problems, that with my colleagues, my peers, we will always try to find an amicable solution. That was my approach to the legal profession. And I'm not saying that you cannot find colleagues or judges that are that tries to solve conflicts in another way, but in a general perspective, they are tied to the law and to the processes. The processes have a lot of steps that makes it really frustrated, not only for people, but for professionals as well, or that at least is my experience. It gets frustrated when you can't reach a solution within a specific time framework, and the case it's delayed for years, and you listen to your client, get frustrated, and you also get frustrated as well. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, but from my experience as an attorney, the approach of solving people's cases, people's conflicts through the legal system was not something that was fulfilling my vision, my goal as an attorney. So then I turned to mediation, and that was for me like, yes, this is what I was looking for, and I didn't know that I could do this, or that I could have this approach, because also at the university where I attend my law degree, they did not tell us about alternative means of conflict solving. Only we had that at the international level, speaking about states, because of the UN Charter and that, but that was it. Not that you could do that through your profession, or that you can go to that path, because we didn't have, at that time when I got my law degree, we did not have a mediation law as well in my state, in my province, right? So mediation was not something that was out there, so they could not tell you to go there, right? So I turned to mediation. I found everything that I was looking for. This is me. This is what I feel like I can do something that I can. So that was a really life-changing moment for me. And also, in addition to my experience as an attorney, then my experience as a public employee, where I felt, it sounds awful, but even more frustrated not to be able to help people, because you are tied by the regulations. If you do not have the legal framework or authorization, you can't do much. So I totally agree that people, when they come to a city council, for example, that's what I worked over the past 6 years, they want someone to listen to them in person, right? And verbally, and they just want to tell you how they feel, and they always feel that the city council does not listen, that they have come like a zillion times to say the same thing, and they do not get an answer, or the answer, they get it like when it's not useful anymore, because the time has gone and they have fixed it. in another way. So they were happy when someone just listened to them, but sometimes you do that, you listen to them, but still you can't tell them anything that can help them. And sometimes I get really conflicted with my passion for mediation, that I cannot practice it actually on a daily basis. I cannot do that because it was not under my jurisdiction is the word, but I don't know if it's accurate, under my functions as a public employee. I was an attorney at the city council, but sometimes the department just said, oh, you have to go to court, you have to go to justice, you have to notify the person. We can't do anything. So that was really, for me, it touched like my core as a mediator, that I cannot do that. Of course, I practice as a mediator because we have mandatory mediation here prior to trial, but that's aside from the city council. And actually, government agencies cannot be summoned to mediation, to the mandatory mediation. That's another instance that they should be involved in, because they are the principal, one of the principal areas here in Argentina, that is globally, that they have daily conflicts with citizens, and they could do something more about it, not just delay it in time, turn into the legal system as a way of delaying the thing. And there are people, at least at the city council in my city, they are open to listen to people, but in general, they are afraid to listen to people. They like shut the doors, like, no. So I think with certain mechanisms, with certain training to the public employees, there's something. Of course, there's a lot that can be done, but to be like humble, at least something you can do to improve all that system.
So let me put it on record. We discussed it before this, Adi. Let me put it on record that Liliana has actually taken unpaid leave to follow this passion, this dream that she has to change things within the system, and how even the government and everything can open out to mediation. So now, relating to that, Adi, you want to tell her or as to how the JAMS Foundation, this fellowship, can actually work for her?
Absolutely, absolutely. The question is if the United States provides with some of the answers or the models that could respond to these questions. If the United States jurisdiction can offer some information, some examples of institutions that have managed to do that, and I would refer to both state level applications of mediation in EDR as well as federal level applications in EDR. Then in that case, there could be reason for you to say, I would like to go visit. I would like to shadow their programs and to see how they work, and see what the JAMS Foundation would say. I think it's as simple as that.
Because I was looking at what Ken Cloak had put out, the role of mediators, and 2 points actually were dealing with this aspect. So I think maybe Liliana, you can speak to Ken. You can shadow his work. What is he doing? We can talk to him. So that, because he's talking about this these days, so we can do that. So that's the kind of thing Adi's talking about. So whatever's happening there, you actually can participate in those. Yeah.
Yes, and I would say that I think different departments and agencies, they have ADR programs. I'm not only referring to court-related or court-annexed mediation programs, and at the federal level, all courts, they need to have an ADR program, or state level ADR programs and mediation centers and so on. But I'm also referring to, for example, institutions like municipalities, just to go straight, you know, to your area of interest, Lydia. I would research before applying, and I would just like to see which municipalities are champions in terms of using mediation in ADR, incorporating it, really incorporating it, not only in their policies, but in their real day-to-day activities. I would try to look for different programs where municipalities are sponsoring various community-based mediation centers, or different mediation programs. I'm thinking about one of them in particular in San Francisco. The Bar Association of San Francisco is sponsoring a great program that is focusing, is in cooperation with the municipality of San Francisco, that is focusing on housing. People that have lost their houses, people that have they cannot afford a house anymore, their rent, and they're out in the street, and that's quite of an issue in the United States. And they have a program that is actually creating a space for conversation to bring landlords, tenants, public sector, different institutions from the public sector, advisors such as lawyers, you know, and then others, and of course mediators to facilitate all these conversations, and to do what? To prevent situations where people will be sent, you know, or will be left out in the street with their families. So concrete applications of mediation. And that, I think, is in San Francisco. Environmental Protection Agency, which is or EPA in Washington, they have a wonderful mediation program, and they really incorporate mediation and ADR in all these discussions around environment, impact to environment of different projects in the United States, or the transportation department. You know, the ones that are building the highways, that are managing the highways and all the roads and so on and so forth. There is a mediation program that is, or a role for mediation in managing that system. So these are just a few examples that I think could be relevant as possible sources for learning. And then I would still maintain the opportunity to really shadow mediators and see how they work in the United States. And that's also something that this program can help you with. For example, in my case, because my focus, and I'm going back to my focus was to see what type of mediation is being used. What is the form that fits the fuzz for US-based lawyers and US-based clients in these large commercial mediation centers? I was able to shadow mediators in different cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and in the area, different offices. And that provided me with opportunities to see firsthand what they mean by mediation. You know, I was surprised to see that most of the time the parties are staying in private sessions, and that's you read about it actually, but when you see it, it's a completely different story. It's like, why? But it's just what is expected. That is the process that is expected by everyone. So you have to respect people's expectations and the very users' right to shape the process that fits their own needs. So all these things I think are things I would do if I were you, Liliana, to access first-hand information, relevant models, and to gather experience. And between 1 and 4 months, you will be able to go to United States should your application be accepted, and do all these things. And I think what is being requested from all fellows is that in 1 week in September, all fellows gather in San Francisco for a gathering, let's say a plenary with everyone. During that week, courses are being organized. Really world-class speakers are being invited to speak in front of the fellows and talk to things that are relevant for all fellows. And a custom-made program is being designed to incorporate everyone's needs. And then the fellows would each travel in his or her own direction towards their cities and institutions and so on and so forth, unless they are they have been doing that already and they're gathering in San Francisco. So it's and this is something that you've heard from Serjan and Simas from Croatia, Vikram.
He's coming in.
Like,
Adi he's coming in after. Hopefully,
yes.
you won't leave by then, because he's going to be here in 5 minutes, less than that maybe.
Good. You get. It's like when you're in school, you make friends. All your fellow colleagues become your friends, and you spend time. You at least that week you spend together in the United States, in San Francisco, and that is such a bonding opportunity for everyone. And what that does, if you think about it, there are more than 100 fellows. And it's a huge family. It's a global family, if you will. And you access that family with a group of 10, 15, depending on how large that year's class was. So you already have your group, but then you realize that your group is part of a global group, and it's so useful to be able to say, well, there is an activity with judges in Pakistan that I would like to learn from. And then you say, oh, I had a colleague from Pakistan, Zishan Ali. So he was my colleague. Let me send him an email. And so you immediately connect with people in all countries. In my case, Kuwait, Nigeria, Albania, Cyprus, India, Spain, Kenya, Poland, Hong Kong, only in my class. Imagine the kind of the dimensions of this program, which is, I think, a world-renowned program that is actually bringing wisdom together under one name. And JAMS, Judge Denny Weinstein, JAMS Foundation, the Weinstein International Foundation, thank you for all your support. And they're actually sponsoring costs for travel, for accommodation, for meals. So you don't even have to spend your own money, unless you would like, specific accommodation that goes beyond the grants that you receive. But to make a long story short, there is scope for any individual, any interested, passionate, professional that would like to see mediation growing in his, her, their jurisdiction, to share these ideas with this program, and maybe she will be accepted, maybe not this year, maybe next year, but nevertheless, this is a resource, it's out there, and it's certainly worth considering. I think they have to be. They're doing a huge service to the ADR community worldwide. So that's it.
This is exactly what I wanted to put out. This is exactly what people need to hear. And so I think you've covered all that. And Liliana, if you have any final questions for Adi, because he also has a lunch to go to. So
No, it's okay, and I don't want to keep him longer. Thank you so much for everything that you just shared with me, and it was very, very helpful, and you really guide me through it. So thank you so much.
But Adi, our target is that a person like Liliana, she practices the profession, she's able to practice the profession and not have to go back to her government job, and she can do actually make changes in that whole system with the government. That should be our target. Yes, Liliana, you're going to do that?
Yes. I mean, I actually as well consider private sector, as Adi said, because there are a lot to do here as well. And yes, it will be like my purpose to be able to develop certain mechanisms that probably as a private mediator. Yes.
No, I think this government thing is very, very, very relevant. I told you that what Ken is saying and what he said, I think is very, very relevant for the world. And every country is going through the same thing. I mean, it's not unique to Argentina. Everywhere the same thing. And like I said earlier, I think that whole colonization mindset, which has then gone into the laws that came out in those countries, I think still stuck with that mindset. I think that mindset did not go away when the laws were being drafted. So I think we need a total revamp. But interestingly, Adi, what Tat Lim from Singapore, he was talking about a total revamping of their civil procedure code. They're doing something there. So let's watch that out, because I think there are lots to do there.
Well, there and not only they, many countries are changing the paradigm in many fields of practice. For example, the education system. There are countries that are not grading students anymore. Not grading. And that's unthinkable for other countries. And just one example of things that could be done differently, completely differently. But before I go, Vikram and Liliana, let me say something else. Many fellows went to JAMS to get better in understanding how private mediation services work and what's the model and how they could create providers or systems where such services would be provided. But at the same time, there are other projects as well. So I know that there have been fellows that went to the United States for this fellowship because they were invited to draft legislation in their country. Other fellows applied or used this program because they were in key positions in the legal profession, and they wanted to go back and to influence the legal profession to the extent that the legal profession would look more closely into the opportunities that mediation brings. Other fellows, for example, one fellow from India, Pranjal Sinha, which we talked about recently, Vikram, he created an app. He's a student, or he at the time was a student that created an app that would bring together demand and supply in India around mediation. And he went to the United States to really understand how mediation works in a more mature space, so that he would bring wisdom to develop the system around that effort that he was already doing. So there are completely different projects for different fellows. That's why Liliana is thinking about influencing the public sector, at least, if not only, to provide services as a private mediator. So one has to really imagine that there could be all sorts of goals that could be supported by this program. So that's it. That's all from my side. Liliana, good luck. And
Thank
as
you
ever,
so much.
I look forward to staying in touch and to supporting your efforts going forward.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
I like the thought behind hers that the dignity of the individual is getting lost, and that aspect of it, I think working around that is important. And also, let me tell you that Pranjal Sinha's co-founder Akshita Ashok, she was in the symposium and she told us about it, and I kept telling her that what you're doing, it was wonderful work. I mean, maybe you don't realize what you've done, but created that whole thing. And there's another person with her, Sachin Malan, who had come looking at the policy in India and all that. They're doing very nice work. I mean, the young people, but they're actually doing excellent work. So perfect. Thank you, Adi. Thanks a lot. I know you got a little delayed with your lunch, maybe, but I mean, is this damn no good? And the fact that you are always there to come in, I really like that. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. And let me just shut this.